Las Vegas campus, of course, left shaken. This after a deadly shooting there yesterday. Matt Tallhelm in the WRL Live Center with the latest on the investigation as it stands now, Matt.
Yeah, Dan, in the last 20 minutes, we have now learned the identities of two of those victims, two of the people shot and killed on that campus there. This is 64-year-old Cha-Jang Yang. He is a business professor, Cha-Jang Chang, rather. He's a business professor there. He's from Henderson. And this is 39-year-old Patricia Navarro Velez, also an assistant professor in the business school there. She also lives in Las Vegas. Those are two of those victims. We also are learning more about the suspected gunman. Right here, you can see him there. This is 67-year-old Anthony Polito, a former college professor who has ties to North Carolina. We're going to learn more about that from Chelsea Donovan in just a minute. But here's the latest from the investigation. This is what we know at this point. The shooting started on the 4th floor in that business school, Beam Hall. And then police say the gunman went through each of those floors there until he was confronted outside and shot and killed by the student union there. 3 people killed, 1 person wounded. The suspect, we've also learned, applied for a job as a professor at UNLV in 2020, but was not hired at this point. There is no motive for the shooting. That is unclear. That is something investigators continue to work to learn.
Right, Matt, thank you. Yes, trying to learn more about the why, who this person was. Again, the suspected shooter does have connections to 2 universities here in North Carolina, including teaching at ECU. Let's bring in WRL's Chelsea Donovan now. You spoke to many of Polito's former students today, people who took his classes when he taught at that university more than 15 years ago, Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. The majority of the students we talked to described him as engaging and easy to get along with, but nearly all of them said that they all have a seared memory of him talking extensively about his love for Las Vegas and his frequent trips there. For more than 16 years, Anthony Polito taught on the campus of ECU. He was an assistant professor in the College of Business, teaching students inside this building about supply chain management and marketing. Polito graduated in 1991 with an MBA from Duke's Fuqua School of Business.
He was a very affable, fun-loving, easy to get along with professor. He wasn't threatening in any way.
Eric Smithwick took Polito's class in 2006.
He was a very good professor. I would have rated him a very good professor.
Students we talked to described Polito's affinity for the city of Las Vegas and said it was a constant topic inside the classroom.
The majority of his focus was on the supply chain of Las Vegas.
He talked a lot about going to Vegas, like when to go, really random.
He talked just a lot about his trips to Las Vegas and how much he loved Las Vegas.
NBC sources say he recently applied for a teaching job at UNLV. Polito's personal website also details his interest in the city as well. Police said the shooting started on the 4th floor of the building that houses the university's Lee Business School. They believe Polito went to several floors before he was killed in a shootout with 2 university detectives outside the building. 3 people were confirmed dead. Now, East Carolina University didn't elaborate as to why Polito resigned in 2017. At that time, he was a tenured associate professor.
Very interesting. Chelsea, thank you.
whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today, but if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace. Oh yeah. We are live. And I'm coming at you with 5. Welcome to another exciting edition of Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream here on YouTube and on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, whatever way you're watching, whoever you are, wherever you are. I hope you are blessed and doing safe tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a lot going on. Of course, you just saw that video. Excuse me 1 second. I got somebody that's typing me. One second. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, got a lot we're getting into today, ladies and gentlemen. Also, if you have not, I ask you all to please hit that like, share, and subscribe button right now. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button right now. Let YouTube, let Facebook, let Periscope know that you are in the right building, ladies and gentlemen, right now. We're gonna bring in our brother. Of course, you can check out the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby on Kindle. We had a great live stream Saturday with brother Andrew Wyatt from who is Bill Cosby's spokesperson. We talked a lot about things going on in the world, and some of that is what we're going to talk about today. But right now, we're going to bring in a friend of the show. He is a partner here every Thursday night. He comes on and collaborates. He is the author of several books, including the John Haynes series, as well as The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis. You can check those books out on Amazon.com. Show your love for Mr. Shawn James, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, Shawn? Good evening.
I'm good, Gavin. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, my brother. Hanging in there. So another day, another dollar. Trying to make it in the world. What about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm just hanging in there.
All right. You want to talk about your what you got lined up? Any new books?
Well, the SJS Direct 2024 catalog is uploaded to KDP, and it's just about to be finished. I just got to get 2 covers, and I'll be ready to launch it in January of 2024, and that'll launch with John Haynes' Illuminati. But until then, you can pick up the 2023 books, John Haynes, Godbreaker, and John Haynes 1987 at Amazon.com and other online booksellers.
Yeah. All right, Shawn, the first video we talked about, what's up? We got to acknowledge about people in the chat first. Cece, Danielle Meyer, and Emperor Rex. How y'all doing tonight? Welcome, 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 and more. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. That's the only way we can defeat the YouTube algorithm. If you like this, like. we're in the shadow ban. So, Shawn, first topic we're talking about tonight, and I know if you saw the video, was on Anthony Polito, the alleged gunman that shot and killed 3 people at UNLV on yesterday. There was a there was a shooting on the UNLV campus that left 3 people dead, 1 person injured, and the suspect, who was identified as Anthony Polito, I think you all saw, I don't know if you all saw his face, but I'll show it to you right here. This is Anthony Polito in the bottom left-hand corner.
Go out through this door right over here where my friend's about to show you, okay? Keep your hands up, okay? Everything's gonna be all right.
I just kept running until some police.
I've seen him. I did a video on him today.
Faculty.
Well, for other people who haven't seen him.
For people who haven't seen it.
People who haven't seen him. He is a professor. I believe he was he applied for the job but was rejected, and he has ties to North Carolina and Georgia. 67 years old. Now, I don't know if he is, I believe he was probably an adjunct, if I'm not mistaken. He had applied for work here at UNLV, but was apparently denied. And they're stating, although they don't know everything as to what was the motive behind it, they're still looking at it. But what it appears to be, I can use the word appears, because no students were harmed in this, and that's a big thing, that this was something probably more, it could have been more personal. That's what it looks like to me. More upset at the fact he didn't get hired. And this was a man who was a business professor taught at the University in North Carolina, East Carolina University from 2001 to 2017. Of course, we know what's going to happen when we see these, that the main push probably will be about gun control. But according to this, before the shooting, did you know that Polito had mailed out 22 letters to university faculty members across the U.S., according to footage reviewed by the detectives from a dash cam in Polito's vehicle? At least one of the envelopes contained an unknown white powder substance, he said. Terrified students and professors cowered in classrooms and offices as the gunman roamed the top 3 floors of UNLV's 5-story Lee Business School around lunchtime on Wednesday. Polito arrived at UNLV at about 15 minutes before the shooting in his 2007 Lexus, Mayhill said. He exited his car, placed items in his waistband, and then entered the business school after 11:30 a.m. The first reports of gunfire came at about 11:45, so they say 15 minutes later. And they say the rampage ended around 11:55 a.m. when Polito left the business school and was confronted by police outside. The suspect's weapon, a 9mm handgun, was purchased legally last year. They're still investigating how many rounds were fired and so forth, but he had a 9mm weapon, apparently, that was used. The 2 victims who were identified were Patricia Navarro Velez and Shashang Sherry Chang. Whitfield said the name of the 3rd victim will be released after relatives have been notified of the death. There was also a visiting professor who was 38 years old, who was wounded but is still hospitalized as of today. And what we know is that Velez was an accounting professor who held a PhD and was on research in cybersecurity disclosures and data analytics. And Chang was an associate professor at the Management, Entrepreneurship, and Technology Department at UNLV. Everybody, of course, remember 6 years ago, there was a shooting at the Mandalay Bay Hotel up in Las Vegas, where a gunman opened fire and killed 60 people, wounded over 400, allegedly, because I think there's still questions about that. But Shawn, what we know about this shooting, this mass shooting that took place, what are your thoughts on it? We've had conversations similar to this. It seems like time and time again, and it still comes up. Nothing changes.
Well, my thoughts on this whole shooting in Las Vegas is that this definitely fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And from the recent information I saw in your video and some recent information I got from ABC News, it's looking like this professor was obsessed with Las Vegas and had created a fantasy world around working and living in Las Vegas. And as he created this fantasy world around living in Las Vegas, he basically hoped that this would come to reality. And when he got that rejection letter in the mail, I believe that's what triggered him to explode in a rage, where he planned this mass shooting. Because from the looks of things, this 67-year-old professor hoped to leave his job to go to Las Vegas to live his dream of working in Vegas and being a part of Vegas culture. But when that whole fantasy wound up getting shattered, that's when he wound up exploding in a rage. Now, from what I've seen, his behavior seemed to be very obsessive as related to him going out here and moving all the way from North Carolina or Georgia to Vegas and having next to no money because he was, according to ABC News, he had an eviction notice on his door. And
Yeah.
as he had an eviction notice on his door, that showed me that he basically gambled everything on the hopes of getting this job at UNLV to live his dream. And when his dream died, that's when he wanted to destroy the world around him. And as he looked to destroy the world around him, this is where the professor decided to go on this shooting rampage, hoping to make the people who rejected him for his dream job and his dream life pay. That's what I believe happened here with this professor. He was basically frustrated because he was not able to go out here and live his dream as related to going out here and living in Las Vegas. Now, this was all part of his creating his smooth world and being a part of his smooth world. And when he found out that his dream and all the risks he was going to take, the gamble to get there, were going to end up in nothing, this is where he went out here and looked to destroy all the lives of the people. That's what I believe he was planning all along. Now, this newscast says that he was an affable and likable guy. But when I listened to ABC News, they said that he had enemies lists. And when I was listening to all of these different reports, they definitely showed me a textbook pattern and profile of a beta male who was a man in crisis, and a man in crisis because he just had built this entire world around this whole dream of going to Vegas. And as he built this dream and wound up seeing it shattered, that's why he wanted to go out here and participate in this shooting. So when I look at this whole situation, it definitely fits that pattern of profile of behavior I talk about in The Man Crisis as related to beta males and their rose-colored reality and their smooth world. And what happens when their world gets rough? That's when these men fall apart and participate in the spectrum of violent behaviors. And that's what we saw happen on the campus of UNLV. And a lot of people don't see the big picture of this man in crisis and how it fits that pattern and profile because most people don't want to talk about the man crisis. And now that I know a little bit more, I may have to go out here and revise the video that I was planning that I already had up for premiere, because with this new information, I clearly see how this man in crisis was completely obsessed with this fantasy of going to Vegas. And after he crapped out on his fantasy, that's when he wanted to roll snake eyes for everybody all around him.
Yeah. He wanted to roll snake eyes for everyone around him. Then he ended up getting killed himself, which seems to be a pattern. You know, if you're going to take yourself out, go ahead, but don't take others out, innocent people out with you.
He wanted revenge. He wanted them to pay for not picking him.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate seeing. Well, first off, I shouldn't say that. I hate seeing anybody get killed, but he obviously, I don't know if he felt hopeless. Obviously, he's upset about what happened, losing his job. But
well, he quit his job, and then to move over there, he was gambling.
He quit his job, but he did quit his job. But I'm saying when you obviously wanted to get back and work with the UNLV, this was like his last hope, and he obviously was desperate. it didn't work out the way he wanted. And so he went on a killing spree. But, you know, this is a pattern of behavior you're seeing. You hate to keep seeing it over and over again. But, and the key is he used the 9mm. This wasn't an AR-15 that was used. And now I bring that up because, of course, and I haven't even seen this video, guys, but I already know just when I look at it and we see who's on here, when they start to use, when they have congresswomen, congresspeople, I know exactly what they're about to talk about. And I'm going to just jump to it. Y'all know what they're going to mention.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my district is getting used to this. We had the worst shooting in American modern history in my district as well at Mandalay Bay.
And I remember that I was actually there covering that story as well. This shooting happened at the university's Beam Hall. That's home to the business school. And you say, you know, one life is one too many. We've lost 3 people, but things could have been much worse because of where this happened.
That's right. Beam Hall is next to Wright Hall, which is social studies, and the student union. It was around the noon hour. That's the end of the quad. Many students could have been there for lunch. If the violence had expanded, you're right, 3 lives is 3 too many, but it could have been much worse.
Absolutely devastating for those families. Congresswoman, you're a member of the Gun Violence Prevention Caucus. What is your response to anyone who feels that at this point, the government is simply failing to protect its people?
Well, I would agree with them. I understand their frustration. Some of the people have turned sorrow and mourning into action. Our task force has introduced a number of bills to get the weapons of war off our streets. Bulk stocks, multiple rounds of ammunition, automatic weapons, stronger background checks, red flag laws. All of that is out there.
Now, I just told you all, and you saw in the article, what the weapon of choice was used in this shooting. A 9mm is not a weapon of war. Those that know guns know that that's not a weapon of war. AR-15 is not even a weapon of war. You can't go into the military doesn't use AR-15s. And if you went into combat with that, you'd be a fool. They use M16s. AR-15 is a variant, and all AR-15 means is, it doesn't mean assault rifle. It stands for Armalite. That's the company that made it. But they're already talking about taking weapons of war. How we do stronger background checks. This was a handgun. Are you going to call and remove that too? You see the point I'm making?
Yeah, I see it.
Can't get it passed. The Republicans won't even hear it or bring it for a vote. We always give thoughts and prayers. Well, that's great, but it's not enough. People want action. And look at us compared to the rest of the world, how much of this kind of personal gun violence we have to experience.
It's definitely been too much. Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time and for your work there on Capitol Hill.
I'm not minimizing what happened here. Life was lost is terrible, but they get these congresspersons up on TV who obviously have not been around guns, who are not around the American people. And they talk about stuff, and they talk about infringing on your rights, especially your Second Amendment rights. And they don't even know the subject that they're talking about, what they're trying to get rid of. Getting weapons of war. Okay, you're talking about it, but guess what? This wasn't a weapon of war. This was a 9mm. This was a handgun. Same thing with the Virginia Tech shooter. He used a handgun to kill 20 people.
And with the obsession this man had, he would have used anything. It didn't matter what weapon he had. I mean, he could have had a knife. He could have even used a vehicle as a weapon. They don't understand how when these beta males start becoming upset, anything can become a weapon.
They used the car and ran over people.
I've seen them use cars. I've seen them use trucks. I've seen even one use a plane. I've done videos on all of these type of these killers, and anything is a weapon to them, and no gun control law can stop them. The only thing that can stop them is an investment in men and trying to get these men a male intervention so they can understand how the world functions for men.
Right on that. Okay, hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep monitoring this story as more facts come out, more developments. Make sure you all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Also, if you'd like to donate to our channel, as you know, I'm not monetized. If you like me for my time, pay me for my time. We're sticking in the world of politics, Shawn. A lot has happened in the last couple of days. But I saw this video. I thought it was interesting because next thing I want to talk about is MSNBC. It was brought to my attention by Professor Black Truth. He did a video on this. MSNBC, as you know, is the voice box, just like CNN, of the liberals, of the far left. And they had a very interesting topic. They had someone come on and they said, are Black voters looking for an alternative in 2024? And it's very interesting because they mentioned that the Biden administration has a problem. In order for them, and you're going to pay very close attention, just so you know how important you guys are. Listen.
You got an autocrat running against you, and nothing short of American democracy's on the line. If that can't inspire you,
I don't know what does.
Now first thing they're doing is throwing out Trump, the autocrat. That's who they're talking about. By the way, he has the newspaper upside down, so you can't see it. But he's talking about Trump, and so they got to use this fear tactic. This is what they do, and this is actually what's going to get Donald Trump elected. You keep banging the drum over and over. They have not learned from 2016, apparently, Shawn. The media has not learned their lesson. And why Donald Trump is going to get elected is because you keep mentioning him over and over again. You mention him out of fear, but then offer no substance to repel that fear. Not what motivates you. What is it the other person is going to do for me? That should be the question, not motivating me out of fear.
Autocrat running against you, and nothing short of American democracy's on the line. If that can't inspire you,
I don't know what does, but
go into professional bowling.
the polling shows President Biden is losing support among Black voters. The White House is vowing not to, quote, make the mistake of underestimating a key group that helped propel Biden to victory in 2020. In a new interview with NBC News, Biden's principal deputy campaign manager acknowledged that for the president to win again in 2024, his team, quote, has to have a long, sustained conversations with African Americans in their communities and can't simply, quote, parachute in around election time.
No.
This comes after a recent survey from the New York Times and Siena College showed Biden ceding support from Black battleground state voters to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. For more on that, let's bring in opinion editor at the Washington Post, Alexi McCammond. Her latest piece is entitled, Democrats Need to Get Real, about RFK Jr.'s strength with Black voters. Alexi, where is it coming from?
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I think what Joe said is right. So a couple of disclaimers off the top. Polls are not gospel. It's a year out, and Black voters are not a monolith. But one thing that is clear in polling trends, focus group trends, and otherwise is that Black voters and other voters are looking for an alternative. Black voters have long felt and said and showed us that they feel taken for granted by the Democratic Party. We've seen the ways in which VP Harris hasn't been supported as much as some folks would like by the Democratic Party, by President Biden. And the real kicker with RFK Jr., and something that is particularly unique to him, is that he taps into this deep-seated, deep-rooted medical skepticism that a lot of Black folks across the country feel, rightfully so. There has been medical racism going back, to the 1800s through now. There is ample reason why folks might feel distrustful of their healthcare providers or of what even the government is telling us we should do with our bodies with respect to vaccines. Now, that is not to say that everything RFK Jr. says about vaccines is directly appealing to Black voters.
Let me pause it for a second. So you're mentioning RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is running for president, and he's running as an independent. He was a Democrat, but he was running as an independent. And he has changed his position time and time again, I guess, to pander for votes, because originally he was not in favor of reparations. Now he's speaking on it. He's been an opponent against jabs, if you get my meaning. He's had questions about that. And I mean, RFK has always had, theories that are outside of the Democratic Party's machine. So they're fearful that he's going to win votes that's going to take away stuff from them. See, they want you to vote, but they only want you to vote one way, and that's their way. They don't want you to think for yourself.
But when he talks about these things and brings up the idea that actually maybe they're lying to you, or maybe you shouldn't take this vaccine, he's really trying to get at what other folks aren't saying to these voters, which is, I hear you, I see you, I understand why you might feel this way.
Rev, curious about your thoughts. I know you have a question for Alexi, but first, can you respond to that about Kennedy playing into a deep skepticism that a lot of members of the Black community have of the medical community?
No, he has definitely played into that, and there is definitely a skepticism, no matter how much we may feel that it is unfounded. People have real skepticism based on history, Tuskegee experiment just being one, about vaccines, and Robert Jr. has played into that. He's also been one that's been a hero in the environmental movement, environmental racism, that many of us supported his raising that prior to his running. But having said that, Alexi, the fact that a lot of the bizarre stuff, both politically as well as in terms of policy, that Robert has brought out, has not been really confronted or countered by the Biden administration. So don't you think that some of what Robert's growing popularity or growing support among some blacks is because he's not been challenged by the Biden supporters on some of the things that he says that are completely out of whack?
I didn't know Al Sharpton was still on the air. Who watches his show? They brought Al out of nowhere because, Al Sharpton is the go-to man. He's the bootlick. He's the rubber stamp for the Democrats, for Biden, for Obama. When Obama was president, he visited the White House more than any other black civil rights activist, even more than Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass combined. Did y'all know that? He was at the White House more than any other activist. And what did we get out of the 8 years of Barack Obama, the so-called first black president? Nothing.
Out of line with the way a lot of blacks think.
I think yes and no. Yes, because when he was briefly running in the Democratic primary against Biden, he was getting a lot of attention. We were all giving him a lot of attention for, the things he was saying at private dinners and otherwise about vaccines, casting doubt on these things, and about some of the more outlandish views he had. And that obviously dipped support with some Democratic voters at the time. I think the smartest thing he's done is get out of that primary and run as an independent, because it takes the heat off of him from the major parties. I know that Joe Biden's campaign doesn't even really want to take him seriously. They think and maintain that voters will see this as a two-person race between Biden and Donald Trump. Everything suggests otherwise at this point, that voters are looking for alternatives, that they want it to be anyone but Biden and Trump. And I think that, black voters are hearing a lot from RFK Jr. about other things beyond vaccines. And I think that's the big issue. He's couching a lot of this stuff in terms of civil rights, as I'm sure you know, Rev. And he's also talking a lot like Milei, who was just elected in Argentina, this sort of populist rhetoric that's painting a very hopeful vision for the future. And he's not really focusing on those other sort of outlandish things. And so to your point, sure, maybe if Democrats focused on those things, people would be more aware and maybe reconsider or think more holistically about who he is. But he's really staying away from those things. And the Biden campaign so far is sort of considering him as a non-starter.
Jonathan, let me hear a few things. First of all, there is the obstacle of Robert Kennedy Jr. getting on the ballot on a lot of states. We'll actually see as we move forward whether he's going to be able to do that or not. As an independent, he certainly has more time to clear the hurdles if he decides that he wants to do that. But I find Alexi's reporting fascinating because you actually have Kennedy. You have two stories here, tell of two stories. One, he takes away from Donald Trump more than Biden in many polls that we've seen, despite the fact he takes one of the most critical electorates. He takes a good chunk of one of the most critical electorates away from Joe Biden. That is black voters. Of course, it is early. And I suspect that what will happen this year is what happens every year, though there can be a change that people come home, whether it's young voters, whether it's people of color. All of these outlandish predictions I heard going into the 2020 election ended up being outlandish. I suspect the same will be true here, but the Biden campaign does have to worry about this, don't they?
Biden campaign officials are deeply worried about third-party candidates. Though they don't want to give them much in the way of oxygen by talking about them, at least not now. Still believing that many of them will eventually drop out between now and when the ballots are actually cast. But you're right, RFK Jr. Appeals to sort of the conspiracy theorist group that draws from Trump. But yes, maybe black voters from Biden. And of course, he's not the only potential third-party candidate. Jill Stein, Cornel West, who might have some appeal to black voters. Joe Manchin is also considering getting in, maybe under the no labels banner. So, Alexi,
no, we're gonna lose our Negroes. That's morning, Joe. We're losing our Negroes one by one. Oh my God, RFK is gonna steal them. That's what this reeks of. Shawn, give your takes. I've given mine. I want you to.
Well, it looks like the MSNBC leftists are wetting their pants about the fact that more black people are not looking to vote for Joker Joe Biden. And black people have no reason to vote for Joker Joe because he told them to their face in 2020 he wasn't going to do anything for black people. So we have no reason to take our booties to the poll to go vote for Joe Biden to save their precious democracy. And since there are no tangibles on the table, black people have no reason to go take their booties to the poll to go out here and stop the evil Donald Trump, because the blue party has shown us how much contempt they have for us. And since they've shown us they have nothing but contempt for us, all we have to do is stay home because there's nothing on the table for us. Now, you have MSNBC trying to manipulate the narrative to say, oh, black people are considering Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but the word on the street I've been hearing is black people aren't considering anyone at all. So don't let these leftists at MSNBC put another candidate's name in our mouths. No, there's no reason for black people to come to the polls unless there's some tangibles on the table, such as an anti-black hate crime bill, reparations, and police reform laws. These are the kind of tangibles that we can start discussing as related to the before we even go to vote. And we need guarantees that these policies will be implemented before anybody goes to cast a vote, because black folks are tired of being taken for granted by the blue party, the red party, the yellow party, the orange party. No, what we're tired of is just being taken for granted. And we're realizing that if you're not getting anything tangible in exchange for your vote, then it's best to sit your booty home on your couch than go out here and vote for candidates that say a bunch of things and do nothing for us. I mean, Joe Biden talked about a Lift Every Voice campaign, but then went out here and right after he got elected, told black people he could do nothing for anyone. And it's Joe Biden's big mouth that wrote a check that his ass is cashing right now as related to him winding up being behind in the election and losing black support because he thought he had the support from the so-called coalition of Hispanics, Asians, alphabets, white women, and other leftists. But it seems like many of those people are breaking off him, just like many of those Arabs now are breaking away now that they see that they are not going to get any support for their Palestinian agenda. So now Joe Biden realizes that it was black people who were the foundation for his campaign, and it was black people who were the ones who took their booties to the poll to save the so-called democracy. But since there's nothing tangible on the table, black people are telling Joe Biden, you can go get your help from the illegals, like the ones who crossed the border. He can go out here and cut a check for. He can go get his votes from those Ukrainians that he was so down for, that now that he's left because they're no longer the current thing. And he can go to those Israelis that he's got all of the support for. I mean, he can cut checks for all of those people, but he can't do a thing for black people. So if he can't do anything for us, we can't be bothered to vote for him. And MSNBC can't manipulate the narrative. They're acknowledging it partially, but the whole thing is they're trying to manipulate it into getting black people to go vote for Robert F. Kennedy. But again, we didn't pick that candidate. And if we didn't pick that candidate, they're not accountable to getting tangibles to us. So black people are starting to smart up and realize that if there's no tangibles on the table from a candidate we picked, then we have no reason to vote. And whatever happens to your so-called democracy happens to your so-called democracy.
Right. I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Brother Shawn. People are tired of this. Black people are starting to wise up. And RFK is not to me, he's not, I know he's not a strong candidate, but not his dad, not his Uncle John. And I think he knew he was not going to get the Democratic nomination. But I think for most people, they are looking at it from the standpoint that he is an independent. I mean, look, I'm willing to vote for any, my vote is for sale. If you're offering tangibles, if you're offering me something for my vote that is going to benefit me, that's going to benefit my people, I'm going to listen to you. If Donald Trump had something wise that he wants to give black folks, I'm going to listen to him. I'm a businessman. But I'm not going to vote for you for nothing. And I'm damn sure not going to vote out of fear. Those days are over. You know, another thing we got to stop doing, Shawn, we got to stop voting for people just because they look like us.
Yeah.
That's gotten played out.
Yep. Eric Adams and Lori Lightfoot and many others, we've already fallen for that game. So
Eric Adams, Lori Lightfoot, Brad Johnson. Did you know that they're calling for the resignation of several of his staff members out in Chicago?
And they rightfully should, because they put migrants before people.
Yeah, over this. They surprisingly they didn't ask for his resignation, but they're asking for the administration's his administrative staff's resignation, which I was looking at. Before I get into my other topics, I just noticed this. I had to pull this up, y'all, because I said I was going to keep covering this story. I'm just got a notification on my phone that, how many of you remember the Ahmaud Arbery case that we've covered? The brother that was killed back in 2020 by those rednecks up in Georgia that we covered. One of whom by three people killed, three rednecks killed Ahmaud Arbery. William Roddy Bryan, who was the one that filmed it, and the sons and the father and son duo that was involved, Travis McMichael and Greg McMichael, that was sentenced to life in prison. William Roddy Bryan was sentenced to 35 years in prison for his role. But how many of y'all remember? You all remember that? Well, you may remember or recall Jackie Johnson. I think that was her name. Yeah, the DA, who tried to cover up this murder. Basically, not cover up, but essentially, I would just say help these three men, especially in my opinion, especially the McMichaels, from escaping justice. So I want to play for you all what happened. This is courtesy of Court TV. Jackie Johnson has some charges that were filed against her for misconduct. And apparently earlier, this was out in Glynn County. She was a top prosecutor, and she allegedly covered this, tried to protect the McMichaels because Greg McMichael was a former investigator for the DA's office for Jackie Johnson. and misconduct charges were filed against her. And courtesy of this was a voicemail that was sent to Jackie Johnson after the incident by Greg McMichael. So listen.
This is Greg. Can you call me as soon as you possibly can? My friend and I have been involved in a shooting, and I need some advice right away. If you can please call me as soon as you possibly can. Thanks. Bye.
Now, that was a call made by convicted killer Greg McMichael to then Glynn County, Georgia District Attorney Jackie Johnson shortly after Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed in February of 2020. Now, that call and others have landed the former DA in legal trouble for allegedly hindering the investigation into Arbery's death. Now, Johnson was indicted by the grand jury for violating her oath of office, among other charges. Now, 3 months ago, she filed a motion asking the court to dismiss the charges due to a lack of evidence. Well, yesterday, the judge ruled he would not dismiss the case, clearing the way for a possible trial. Now, Johnson was the top prosecutor in Glynn County when 3 white men, Greg McMichael, his son Travis, and their friend William Roddy Bryan, chased Arbery in pickup trucks and killed him. Arbery was running through their neighborhood at the time and had not committed any crimes. Now, after the incident, Greg McMichael, who once worked as an investigator in Jackie Johnson's office, called her for help. Shortly thereafter, Johnson recused herself from the case, but according to prosecutors, not before she told officers not to arrest her former employee. Now, 2 months later, video of Arbery's murder would be leaked online, leading to the arrest of the 3 men involved in the shooting, including Greg McMichael. Now, the call that McMichael made to Johnson came up during a hearing for the 3 defendants. Take a listen.
States 18 is the voicemail left to then District Attorney, and this goes to prong number 4, risk of influencing and obstructing justice from the crime scene.
Jackie, this is Greg. Can you call me as soon as you possibly can? My friend and I have been involved in a shooting, and I need some advice right away. If you could please call me as soon as you possibly can. Thanks. Bye.
This evidence shows from day 1, there was an attempt by these defendants to influence and obstruct the investigation of this case. As to all the evidence that was presented from defense's witness regarding Greg McMichael's former employment as Glynn County law enforcement, in rebuttal to that, we have the post record States Exhibit 20, which you've heard about today. And I want to be clear on this, Your Honor. I am not saying, the state is not saying that the effect of these phone calls and discussions, voicemails to the DA, then that it had the desired effect. That's not the standard that the court must look at. You must look at whether the defendant had the intention of obstructing and influencing the investigation, and that's the purpose of this evidence, is to show that he wanted to influence and obstruct this. So the standard is pose significant risk of intimidating witnesses or obstructing justice. And that's the evidence that we're presenting before the court now.
Now, the 3 men, as you well know, were eventually tried and convicted in November of 2021 for killing Arbery. Now, 2 months before the verdict, a grand jury indicted Jackie Johnson for her alleged role in delaying that investigation. And Lee Merritt, one of the attorneys for Arbery's family, reacted to her indictment.
With regard to Jackie Johnson, what was presented to the grand jury was first evidence that Jackie Johnson had a relationship with Gregory McMichael, the father of the shooter, Travis McMichael, that immediately became involved in the case. The first phone call that Gregory McMichael made from the scene of the shooting was to Jackie Johnson saying, "I'm in trouble and I need help." And instead of opting out and saying that she had a conflict, she called the subsequent prosecutor, George Barnhill, and began to discuss and get his advice on the case before ultimately referring the case over to him without disclosing to anyone that she had referenced him for this case or that he too had a conflict concerning Gregory McMichael. And so the prosecution will show that she violated her oath of office, that Ahmaud Arbery and his family wasn't given a fair shake at justice from the beginning because she put her thumb in the scale by using relationships that she had developed over time.
Now, Johnson is being represented by Brian Steele. Does that sound familiar? That's the same attorney who's representing rapper Young Thug in his racketeering trial happening in Georgia right now. and no word on when Jackie Johnson's trial could start. And again, it's been delayed over and over because Brian Steele is in fact involved in that Young Thug trial. So it could be some time before we get to trial on that case, if in fact it goes to trial. Still with me, of course, is criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Pereira, and also Deputy Chief of Investigations for Gwinnett County, Georgia, Curtis Clements. Again, thanks you guys for being here. And Curtis, I'll start with you. It makes sense to me. You know, it's not odd to me that Greg McMichael would choose to make that phone call first. If you work next to power and you're someone who's in a very similar position to what he was doing, at least at some point in your career, you've moved beyond that now. But at the end of the day, it makes sense that he would make that call and maybe seek advice or maybe even a little help.
Well, as the top prosecutor in the county, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. And what happened here is, where do you separate the line between friendship and fair and equitable justice, and ensuring that this investigation is transparent and is untainted by friendship or any other means that will cause this jury or the public to go awry?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting, Marie, is as most folks remember, one of the big issues in that case is, remember, you heard Lee Merritt talk about a phone call she made to District Attorney Barnio. Eventually, he decided to not press any charges. He saw the video that the world saw and still decided not to press any charges. Again, creating this appearance of impropriety. Big problem in this case. What do you think about these charges?
She abused her power. And the only reason why Father McMichael called her is to say, you know what? Be part of the good old boys racism club. I heard this black boy. I didn't do anything, and I need for you to stop this, nip it in the bud. To obstruct.
So let me just stop there. What everybody is hearing and what happened is basically a judge denied dismissing this case. Judge is not going to dismiss this case against her for misusing her office. This was over a week ago, by the way. You can read the article back on November 28th of the AP. Judge rejects efforts to dismiss case against DA charged in aftermath, Ahmaud Arbery killing aftermath. Senior Judge John Turner comes 20 months. This page ruling came 20 months after defense attorneys for the district attorney, Jackie Johnson, filed a legal motion arguing the case against her should be scrapped for lack of evidence. Johnson, of course, was the top prosecutor for coastal Glenn County, where white men in pickup trucks chased and killed Ahmaud Arbery on February 23rd, 2020. So the judge just flat out denied it, and they're going to obviously have to pursue this trial in court. Shawn, what do you think of this incident?
Well, this whole incident basically sounds like a fix was in from the beginning, and there was definitely a clear conflict of interest with this prosecutor being contacted by one of the suspects, and that should have been enough right there for this prosecutor to recuse herself, and she should have recused herself because she had this conflict of interest, but no, she looked to use that conflict of interest to go out here and be able to further get some more favor with these good old boys. So she wanted to go out here and do them a solid by protecting them from the murder they participated in as related to this black man's life, Ahmaud Arbery, in an effort to try to maintain clout with these good old white boys. And that shows me that this woman has absolutely no ethics whatsoever, because for her to go out here and look to try to get in on the fix of covering up a murder these two men participated in, it shows me that this district attorney wasn't looking to work for the best interest of the state. She was working for the best interest of white supremacy. And what's happening to her right now is that she's being held accountable for the crimes she possibly would have committed by looking to go out here and try to get this case thrown out. I mean, what she was participating in was a travesty of justice. I mean, this goes completely against the oath that this woman took after she was voted into office. She was basically giving preferential treatment to possible suspects, and that goes against everything a district attorney is supposed to be about. I mean, a district attorney is supposed to be looking out for the best interest of the state and the people, not looking to go out here and get favors for people as related to getting them out of a jam they got themselves into. I mean, this woman basically is just, she's not fit for office if these charges are true. And they have to be serious charges if the judges are not dismissing them at this point. I mean, these has to be some serious charges to show that this woman had her hands deep in the dirt. And based on the tape that was played, I mean, it sounds like this woman was definitely deep into this whole situation. And she definitely does deserve whatever punishment she gets if she's convicted. Because when you're going out here obstructing justice like this just shows you're not fit for office and not fit for the office that you have. Because again, district attorney is supposed to be objective, not looking to do favors for defendants. That just shows, again, just pure corruption. And this woman, again, she's getting what she's deserving right now as I see it.
Yeah. We're going to continue to monitor. The reason I brought this up, and I wasn't even planning, but I got the notice on my phone that they're not going to dismiss her charges. And honestly, they should not. She needs to be, if she did anything, obviously, I believe she did, just based off the evidence, based off the fact that that phone call was made. And to answer your question, Wrench Beater, the McMichaels were indicted by a grand jury in 2021. The shooting took place back in 2020. And it was only after the video went viral, because 2 months had passed. This incident happened back in February of 2020, February 23rd. And an attorney that Roddy Bryant went to see leaked the video out to the press thinking it was going to help his client make him look good. It didn't. It was actually the key piece of evidence that the prosecutors needed, that the state needed. Otherwise, they would have never been charged if that video had not been leaked. Right? Now, one of Johnson's defense attorneys, this is interesting, is Brian Steele. He's representing Young Thug, as you saw in that video. So she obviously has a very popular lawyer, good lawyer, which she needs. And, we don't know what will happen. But, yeah, he honestly needed to be prosecuted. See, that's just like she should have prosecuted the McMichaels in the first place. If there was a conflict of interest, what happens typically, Shawn, is an attorney general will go ahead and step in. But the grand jury didn't indict the Johnsons until 2021 because we covered the murder trial that happened over the Thanksgiving holiday in 2021, if anybody remembers. So there you go. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Now, something else came up, Shawn. I did see that Hunter Biden is indicted again. I think he's expected to be indicted out in California. I wasn't trying to talk about this too much, but he was hit with 9 tax-related charges. Remember, he was indicted on the federal gun charges in September.
Yeah.
But now he's indicted on some tax charges, 9 of them. And this is out in California. And this is in the backdrop of the president's looming 2024 election. I wasn't planning to touch on it, but if you want to touch on it briefly, give me your thought or however long you want.
Well, I would need more information on it, so I'm not going to say anything until I get more information on Hunter Biden's indictment because I really want to get all the evidence in.
Okay. Well, you can all look at the article, but essentially what they're saying is it's 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. There's also an additional federal firearms charge in Delaware that alleging Hunter Biden broke laws against drugs users having guns in 2018. They come after the implosion of a plea deal over the summer that would have spared jail time. Hunter Biden spent millions of dollars on an extravagant lifestyle rather than paying his tax bills, according to special counsel David Weiss in a statement. The charges are centered on an at least 1.4 million in taxes Hunter Biden owed between 2016 and 2019, a period where he has acknowledged he was struggling with addiction. The back taxes have since been paid. If convicted, Hunter Biden could face up to 17 years in prison. Wow. Well, this certainly doesn't help the president. And I don't know how Biden is health-wise if he were to survive a presidency. Even in his presidency, if he gets convicted, do you see him pardoning his son?
If he does that, then he'll wind up with a lower approval rating than he has right now.
Yeah, but at that point, let's say he gets reelected, because this trial probably won't happen until after the election. If he does get reelected, I'm just saying, I doubt that. But at that point, he's a lame duck president.
Yeah, but then the country gets what it deserves, because you would have to be a special brand of stupid to vote for Joe Biden with the country being in the state that it's in right now.
Stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah. And that's when people stop having sympathy for America, because they go, you are the one making these bad decisions. It's like the black woman who dates Pookie. People look at you and go, that's you.
Yeah. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, family. All right. Last but not least, I want to talk about this Stephen A. Smith, Molly's Querum. I call them the worst. Now, of course, this is ESPN. I don't really watch it as much as I used to, and I know what they're about. This doesn't surprise me, but I got to talk about I got to talk about Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. Smith and Molly Querum have a certain tone. The Negroes at ESPN, racist ESPN, and even Fox Sports to some degree have I don't know what it is with sports and athletes, but they have a certain way they like to talk about black people versus whites. There's a certain pattern that they have in their treatment of black men on their channels versus white athletes. Case in point, Shawn, we talked about Andre Giddy last week. Stephen A. Smith gave a video about why the coverage between Giddy and other black athletes, basically Malika Andrews, was different. He even made the point of comparison of mentioning that versus Vaughn Miller. Vaughn Miller was accused or had an arrest warrant issued for a domestic violence charge, which, according to some reports, his girlfriend has even said didn't happen. But nevertheless, once you get the police involved, once they're called out, they don't dismiss these charges. And he has children with the woman. But she says it didn't happen. So that's what happened last week. But ESPN has given very little coverage to the Andrew Giddy situation, where Giddy is accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a minor. Now, that's still being investigated, but they've been low key. And Kwame Brown and Games Pro, other brothers have talked about this. Self Talk has talked about this. But there's a certain way in which they deal with men, black men and white men. And the example is in this video. Now, you remember last year at a New Year's Eve party, Dana White, Shawn, you remember this story. Dana White, the leader of the UFC, slapped his wife on camera. Now, before that, in fairness, she slapped him. They both admitted that they were drinking. But Stephen A. Smith came to his aid. And you're going to see this video courtesy of Brother Self Talk. Hold on.
Who
That's
made a
Corey
mistake.
Holcomb.
Dana White is not just somebody that's connected in the world of sports. He's a friend. I love the guy personally. So this is a very hard subject for me. We talk all the time. He says it has never, ever happened before. He's completely ashamed and utterly disgusted with himself that he finds himself in this situation, that he would ever have done such a thing to a woman he's been married to for 30 years. who's the mother of his 3 children. He asserts that it's never happened before, that it was completely out of character. And she even pointed to the fact that they were out and they were drinking and all of that other stuff as well. And, you know, all I can say is that, again, he has spoken out against men who put their hands on women before, and whatever punishment you would exact under these circumstances to somebody else is what he should apply to himself.
And I don't judge people by their worst moment. I agree with you on that punishment part. And the other piece that I just want to say, as a woman, it was also his wife's hands on him. So no one should be putting their hands on anyone.
Okay.
Male, female, female, male.
Dana White is not just somebody I know in sports, nor you. He's a friend.
Yeah.
I love him. You know, he knows that we're on this air. He knew ahead of time
I
because
love
I reached
Dana
out to
White.
him to let him know.
I love you, boss. Like the little boy that was, he like the brother that was crying in Remember the Titan. Remember the black man who was crying when his white player who was racist formerly to him got paralyzed from the waist down. I love you, man. They ain't gonna beat under the black and white shirt. His lip was quivering more than a dude from Boys to Men. Oh God, give me the reason. Y'all remember that? No, I would be talking about this morning. He knows that he crossed the line that he has never crossed before, and that he swears he will never cross again. And he's incredibly ashamed He's
of himself.
giving him the benefit of the doubt.
And that's just where we are right now.
Now look at how he talks
that's
about
all I'll
Bob
say.
Miller.
Don't hit women. You just saw Dana White hit the woman and you took up when it's the brother. The girl said he didn't hit me. Your whole thing was, don't hit women. Don't put your hands on no woman. Now, I remember one day Stephen A. Smith said something about women and the drama they bring on themselves, and they canceled his ass. They made him lick ho to come back on the show. And ever since then, he realizes how to be a good boy. When Dana White hit his girl in front of everybody, it's, oh, this is my friend. He's not a bad guy. But Von Miller, it was a report out about him.
Right. And what Corey Holcomb is saying is true. A report was out. There's not been any proof that Von Miller did anything. The Bills actually are still allowing him to practice. They're letting the legal process play out. He's innocent until proven guilty. You know, she's denied it. And look, it's not the first time. Look what he did with Kevin Porter Jr. when it was reported that I played the video last week. You were here, Shawn. He reacted completely differently, and was talking about how, you know, he needs to be thrown under the jail. Well, they had to dismiss one of the charges against Kevin Porter Jr. because the so-called injuries to the woman didn't happen. She's even saying it didn't happen. That's why I always say it's cautionary. You always say innocent until proven guilty. You wait. She's claiming there was no assault. But listen to the difference.
And your whole thing was, don't put your hands on no woman.
First things first.
Watch.
We don't know all the facts. We heard this report. Obviously, an arrest warrant being issued is a very, very serious matter. Without knowing anything, let's just make sure we make this general statement that everybody at this table will agree with. Keep your hands off women. Do not put your hands on women if you are a man, period. Let's get that out the way.
Nobody should be putting their hands on anybody, man or woman. I've had to represent women, a lot of women who slapped the hell out of their men to the point they gave him a black eye. The man has cuts and bruises, scratch marks on him. I've had to do some of those. Now, you do have some cases and some instances where there are women who are in an abusive relationship. There is such a thing called battered wife syndrome in the law. They've used that in a lot of murder cases where a woman kills her abusive lover or abusive husband, boyfriend, or fiance, whoever. and they want to say it's not self-defense, but they find out there was a history of abuse. They've actually allowed that into these cases to be used.
Having said all of that, on a separate issue, there's something going on in the NBA with Josh Giddey. And what I've said and what numerous others have said is we don't know all the facts. So if we have to take that position with him, with allegations of dealing with a minor, and we want to sit up there and say, wait until we have all the facts, same thing to Von Miller. But it does not look good for him to be in this situation. There is nothing good about this for him, nor the Bills, nor society as a whole.
What about fucking around with what about messing around with minors? Nigga, what? You just said I don't know all the facts. These are allegations. You said you had to be careful. Why you weren't? You offended Malika Andrews saying they had to be careful because they didn't know the facts about Andrew Giddey. We don't know all the facts. We could get sued. You don't think you could get sued about talking about Von Miller? They made you tuck your tail in between your legs years ago, Stephen A., when you came out about Ray Rice and how women ought to be careful about bringing stuff on them. And I understood what you were trying to say. And it made you apologize, and you were suspended for 2 weeks. And now you're begging ESPN for more money. You want to be the highest paid anchor, highest paid personality on ESPN. Like you said, your job is to make as much money as you can for your bosses and get a piece of it. You work for boss.
With all the nonsense that
watch the rest of these Negroes.
Do not put your hands on a woman.
Nor
That's all I
the
have to say.
pregnant girlfriend or the future child,
Yes.
if true.
If
I mean,
true.
it's again, we don't have the facts. It's troubling,
disturbing.
especially the Bills have had sort of issues before with kickers and stuff like that.
Keeping your hands to yourself. Like, come on. You shouldn't even have to be saying these things in this day and age. You would think,
right,
with all these type of incidences that keep happening, like, keep your damn hands to yourself. That is not
Which
where you
we
want.
all condemn.
Yeah,
realize the gravity of that.
It's just ridiculous.
No matter what the situation is,
you cannot.
You do not touch
a
woman.
Okay, that's Corey Holcomb calling out Stephen A. Smith on his live stream. I'll have the full link to that down below, so you guys can go over there and subscribe up.
Completely different. Completely different. And the reason why Corey Holcomb and others are calling out Stephen A. Kwame Brown is because people listen to you. You have a platform bigger than us, and you are talking down as a black man, although that hairline is suspect, about other black people. Now, listen to this.
Look at Molly. I said, Molly. Would you listen to Molly? Because this is the same thing that Stephen A. Smith got fired for. What Molly is about to say, Stephen A. Smith got suspended and fired for. But in this scenario, when it's a black man, when it's Von Miller, they bring up Molly. They bring up a black woman, I think 2 black women, and a black man and another black man, and Stephen A. And they all have a roundtable discussion condemning this situation. But listen to how they talk about Dana White when he, on video, slapped a woman. Stephen A. is giving him the liquor excuse.
All right. So you heard that?
Should be putting their hands on anyone.
Okay.
Male, female.
Oh my God.
That's what he was talking about. But Shawn, go ahead and comment on this Stephen A. and Molly Karam and these other.
Well, with Stephen A. Smith, he's just another bootleg, just saying whatever his paymasters tell him to say. And when it comes down to black people in sports, he's going to always have something negative to say about black people in sports because that's what his paymasters want him to say. They basically want him to parrot the narrative that these black men are guilty until proven innocent. They're violent black brutes that are completely out of control. And that's the narrative that Stephen A. Smith's paymasters pay him to say. And he's out to get a cut of that money. So he's going to go out here and say whatever they want him to say. Now, when it comes down to the white guys, like the creepy pedophile basketball player, he's innocent until proven guilty. We don't have the facts yet. And when it comes to Dana White, he's a friend. So he's not going to say nothing bad about the slave master's friend. So that just shows me another reason why we just shouldn't be watching any sort of mainstream media, because mainstream media is anti-black. And when it comes down to this mainstream media, all they're going to do is push anti-black narratives regarding black athletes, black entertainers, black anybody. And they're going to look to demonize the black person in their media. And what's even worse is going to do is go find them a bootleg like a Stephen A. Smith to go out here and say all the negative things about black people that the white people in media can't say. What they do is get the black bootleg to go out here and be their mouthpiece, or as one guy, Mad Black, calls them, a bigot-proof vest to stand behind, have him make all the racist statements they want to say so that the white reporters won't be called a racist. If they have a black bootleg going out here saying what they want said, then they can say they're not racist. And that's primarily what Stephen A. Smith's job is, to go out here and promote the anti-black narratives so that the networks like ESPN and many others won't be called a racist and won't be called on their racism. But that's all what Stephen A. Smith's job is. That's what Molly Quirum's job is, to go out here and say those things about black athletes, because the whole thing is with that player, what they wanted to do was make him out to be a black brute, a violent savage, as related to these domestic violence charges, which basically were proven to be not really substantiated. What they wanted to do was push the narrative that he's a violent black brute. And this is the reason why black men are dangerous, because that's what they want on their platforms. And this is why we shouldn't be watching their platforms, because they're toxic. And we should be watching our own new black media so we can get a balanced picture of these stories and a balanced analysis where we get all the details and not this slant that just goes out here and gives you another story of a brute of the month. When it comes down to mainstream media, this is one of the reasons why I stopped watching it and stopped watching anything with these clowns. I don't watch these clowns because I know everything about them that's going to come out of their mouth is going to be anti-black, and they're going to try to find a way to make the black man the bad guy of the story. So that's why I don't usually go on and watch these platforms. And no one should watch these platforms, because we know that these guys are only going to say what their white paymasters tell them to say. So that's what I got to say about this whole situation. Just don't watch these guys, because we know what they're going to say about black people.
No. Yeah, and I'll just say this. I think yeah, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Rose, I mean, even to a degree, Shannon Sharp, they've all do, well, Stephen A. Smith before Shannon, but Shannon has even done a little soft shoeing. But Stephen A. Smith is like the biggest coon on ESPN in sports. He's the biggest sample, the biggest sellout. And he's already on here. I don't know if you saw this, but this was recorded to Deadspin. He went on a broadcast complaining that he should be the highest paid personality on ESPN. Right now, he makes $12 million per year, $8 million in a personal salary, and a $4 million per year production contract. Pat McAfee, I want you to look at this. The punter, he has a show on ESPN that he just started back in May. Worth $85 million for 5 years. That means, Shawn, that that man gets about $17.5 million a year.
Well, they better save up their money, because bootlick is a job without a retirement plan.
Yeah, so he doesn't have, and he's complaining. Tony Romo signed a 10-year deal with CBS worth $17 million. But Molly Carum, she said the same thing that Stephen A. Smith said That's what Kwame Brown was pointing out. And Stephen A. Smith was the one that got suspended.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't learned anything from Skip Bayless. Remember what they did with Ray Rice. Ray Rice is out of the league because of that video. Now, I'm not saying Ray Rice necessarily shouldn't have been suspended. Yes, he should have. But remember, he told everybody what he did. It was only because the video went viral and the feminists and the National Association Organization of Women went livid when they saw it. And the media just spun it around, and eventually that's what happened.
I'm wondering where the National Organization of Women were with Chad Wheeler.
No, they've been quiet. Where were they with War Machine when he raped his girl? He raped her and nearly killed her.
But the white feminists aren't anywhere to be found when white men do stuff. That's funny.
Yeah. Bootlicking has no backup plan.
Nope. No retirement plan for the black bootleg.
And this was a guy I actually respected at one point. Stephen A. Smith, I thought was that dude when he had his show, quite frankly. But then he got kicked off. He was doing a lot of freelance work. He comes back to ESPN. He wants to be the top black man and say anything and everything he can against black people. Oh, they're going to listen to me. You don't want it with me.
You want to be the age nice.
Yeah. He wants to be Joe Clark, but not for the benefit of the kids. The head, the THNIC. End of discussion. Debate is over. You will write a formal apology to Mrs. Elliott, Darnell, and to the women for your thoughtless innocence in this community. You will step and fetch. You will kowtow. Get used to it, because contrary to public opinion, I'm the head nigga in charge. Benson, lean on me. Robert Guillaume and Morgan Freeman going at it. Classic scene. All right. We're going to wrap this one up, Shawn. If you want to do a plug-in, go ahead.
All right. You can pick up the books of the SJS Direct catalog on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. Many of the books on the SJS Direct imprint are positive black fiction that will inspire and uplift you and will make great gifts for you and your family this holiday season.
And speaking of the holiday season, ladies and gentlemen, please purchase Be My Baby for Christmas on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon. But get it on iTunes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pushing that song. If you love it, play it. We're going to play it all through the year. Ladies, till the end of the year, Be My Baby for Christmas. That's my latest Christmas song. That's my latest single y'all can listen to. All right. All right. Shawn, anything else? Oh. Shawn left, and I was going to ask him what his live stream was going to be about, but that's all right. I'll get a text message. He left. He probably had to go potty. All right. You all be safe. Be blessed. That was a great broadcast. Great night. We might, I don't know if we'll have another guest again. I'm sure we will. Over the weekend, I'll find out. But y'all be safe. Be blessed, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another great live stream. This has been Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream on social media. I'll holla. Peace. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Keating. Thank you, Cheryl Massey, for your donation. Wrench Beater, all Keating Walk. Yeah. Thank y'all. Peace out.